Hi, this is Lara from Forex Info USA with your free end of the week analysis for the US dollar index for the week ending Friday the 30th of April. And starting this analysis with a look at a historical chart just going back 3 years today. We had, after a 5 waves down for C in early 2008, we had a nice little 5 waves up for 1, starting with a nice leading contracting diagonal in a first wave position with a nice ABC for 2. A really good strong third wave, exactly as third wave should be. A short sharp correction for wave 4 and a little fifth wave to end this wave 1 at primary degree. Followed by an expanded flat A, B, C correction for a second wave. We've had some pretty good breakout of this trend channel that contained primary wave 2 at the end of 2009. So we can be pretty confident that we're in a primary third wave to the upside. Targets for the end to primary wave 3. In the first instance, about 91.91. When the dollar gets up to that level, wave 3 will equal wave 1 at primary degree, but a more likely upside target is where wave 3 is longer than 1, because it usually is, and where it's 1.618, the length of 1, would see the dollar rise to about 102.87, and I expect we'll get to that target about December this year or maybe August next year using Fibonacci time relationships. Taking you now to a regular daily chart where this maroon 2 is this maroon 2 down here, and here's our recent dollar rises with the minor or blue 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to end intermediate wave 1, followed by an expanded flat correction A, B, and now we're just starting to work on wave C down to the downside to end intermediate wave 2 to the downside. I have a little cluster of targets to the downside for intermediate wave 2. When wave 2 gets down to 79.25, wave C blue will equal 1.618, the length of wave A blue. When it's down to 79.15, that's also the 0.382 Fibonacci ratio for the whole of this wave 1 black. And also the end of this wave 4 lies at 79.51. So we have a little cluster of target zones between 79.51 to 79.15 just in here. So that seems a very likely ending zone somewhere in there for the end to wave 2 black. And when that's over, the next move for the dollar is going to be in wave 3 at intermediate or black degree within a primary third wave. So we're looking at some very, very strong movement coming up for the dollar when this intermediate wave 2 is finished, which should maybe take another couple of weeks or so. Taking you now to an hourly chart where this blue B is this blue B up here, and here's the end of our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for wave C to end B, which was an ABC. B always has to break down to a 3-wave structure. Thereafter, we've got some downwards movement, and this has a very, very obvious 5-wave structure. Compare this little piece of movement here on the hourly chart, which is obviously impulsive and breaks down to a clean 5 waves that meets all the Elliott wave rules, to this piece of movement, which is very obviously overlapping, choppy, and corrective. So that gives me a little bit more confidence that wave B blue is over, and we're working on a 5-wave impulse down, which will be labelled C blue. Wave C has to break down into a 5 waves, and it's going to be either an impulse or a diagonal. So far, with the look of this, it looks like it's probably going to be an impulse. So my next question is if I can count nice 5 waves here down for wave 1 green, I'll label it green at this stage, and we have a little piece of upwards movement here. Is this the end to wave 2 green here, or are we looking at A, B, C? To answer that question, I'll go to a 15-minute chart and have a really close look at this piece of movement just here, where this 2 green is this 2 green just here, and looking at this little piece of movement just here, it has a very, very obvious 3-wave look. You can't count this as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because it breaks a core Elliott wave rule. 4 cannot go into 1. So it seems fairly likely that wave 2 green was over here. There is a slim possibility that this is an ABC 3-wave structure for A, and we're looking at a flat correction for 2 green with an A, B that would have to reach down to 90% of this A, and then a C that could take it higher. That is reasonably possible. Although this little piece of movement here, I can see already a very clean 1, 2, possibly the beginning of 3, 4. This point is exactly the same as this point, so 4 doesn't go into 1. So this also has a pretty impulsive look to it. It doesn't have that overlapping choppy corrective look that if this was a B wave we should be expecting. It's really interesting to note when you have a look at this last piece of downwards movement, it's possible and not that difficult, quite frankly, to count 5 wave structures, 3 wave structures, 5 waves, 3, an expanding ending diagonal here to end 5 of 3. It's really easy to see all of these little pieces of movement exactly as Elliott described, meeting all Elliott wave rules and guidelines, beautifully proportioned with some nice Fibonacci ratios, all the way down here. So Elliott wave does work really well even on a 15-minute chart, for those of you who are wondering. I get that question every now and then, and here's a chart to illustrate the answer. Yes, it does work, and it works beautifully. The only problem I have with this is in this expanding ending diagonal in this 5th wave position to end this wave 3. Wave 3 is 0.22 long, and wave 5 is 0.19 long. So wave 5 is 0.03 less than the length of 3. And for an expanding diagonal, you would expect wave 5 should be longer. I do keep, however, seeing on Forex charts diagonals where wave 3 is the longest, and I'm wondering if the rules for diagonals, I know they are slightly flexible and that there's some discussion about what the rules are for diagonals. I expect for Forex we may see that wave 3 is usually the longest in a contracting and expanding diagonal. So that's all from me with your US dollar analysis. I expect we're going to have some pretty good downwards movement next week, hence the big fat green arrow. And I have some really accurate targets to the downside for you to end that intermediate wave 2. I hope everyone's having an awesome weekend, and next week may all your trades be profitable.